He was one of the loudest voices in American politics and one of the youngest to get there. Charlie Kirk built a huge following with just a microphone and a stage. By the time most people were still learning how to pay rent, he was already a regular face in conservative media. But how does someone go from dropping out of community college to meeting presidents in less than 10 years? He wasn't just a guy on a podcast. He was also a father, a husband, a man who moved between planned anger and the real mess of everyday life. This isn't about who was right or wrong. It's about what he did. So, what did Charlie Kirk actually do all day? Charlie Kirk didn't climb to the top with a rich family or a fancy job history. He did it with a microphone, internet, and a very early alarm clock. While most people were still waking up or checking the news, Kirk was already working. He often started his day before the sun came up. Sometimes 4:30, sometimes 5. Not because he had to travel or go to the gym, but because he saw mornings as a head start quiet time before the chaos. He believed early hours gave him clear thinking. Before tweets, before cameras, before all the noise. His mornings were not slow. No slow walks to the kitchen. No sitting with coffee. He went straight into work. Multiple phones, chat groups, news updates. His screen wasn't for fun, it was full of info. Political notes, voting numbers, podcast texts, message drafts, everything he needed to plan the day. And if he was awake, his team had to be too. Some worked in different time zones to keep up. Others knew to be ready by sunrise. A morning check-in could mean anything: checking ads, prepping a show, or jumping into a live stream with no notice. Coffee? Somewhere in the middle, strong and quick. Breakfast? Maybe, but it wasn't the focus. There were talking points to finish, press notes to approve, and speeches to change. This was the start of a long race. News headlines hadn't even dropped yet, but Charlie Kirk was already deep into the day. For him, waking up early wasn't just routine. It was a way to stay ahead. By late morning, Charlie Kirk wasn't just awake, he was ready, with news stories, talking points, and a large iced coffee in hand. It was time to go live. His desk was simple. The setup was clean microphone, laptop, ring light, and a stack of papers marked up with blue pen. He didn't need a big newsroom, just a quiet studio, good internet, and people ready to listen. The Turning Point USA podcast, radio show, and live stream weren't side jobs, they were his main focus. He spent hours on air, 5 days a week, sometimes more. From interviews with senators to surprise rants about college loans, Charlie's speeches became his strong point: fast, sharp, and often unplanned. He had habits. He tapped the desk to stress a point. He leaned forward when pushing back on a caller. If a guest got something wrong, he would step in with a calm, almost teacher-like voice. He didn't shout, he kept control. It was all about timing. Most days, his shows weren't just news, they were debates. He talked about colleges, voting, money, social issues, TikTok, even pop stars like Taylor Swift. The topics changed, but the goal stayed the same: shape the story, stay ahead, and keep control of the message. What made the show work wasn't just politics, it was Charlie. People tuned in for the news, but stayed for his confidence. He didn't ask, he told. And when the mic turned off, there were still emails to check, guests to prepare, facts to learn. Because for Charlie Kirk, every loud moment on air was backed by quiet hours of work, and the next show was already coming. The show would end usually around 11 a.m., but the real work started after the mic was off. First came a quick team talk. What parts of the show worked best? What clips were already spreading online? What should be posted right away? Then the team chat apps lit up. Graphics, quotes, promo text. The media machine kept going. And then came the meetings. A lot of them. Some were regular checking in with Turning Point's team leaders, planning future campus events, or going over schedules. Others were more important calls with big donors, talks with political campaigns, or updates about new laws in Republican-led states. Charlie talked to all kinds of people: church leaders, rich business owners, local lawmakers, heads of student groups. He spent much of his afternoon on the phone or in video calls, sometimes walking in circles, sometimes pacing in the Arizona Sunday, always on. Money was a big part of the job. Turning Point USA ran on donations millions every year. Part of Charlie's job was to keep that money coming in, not by begging, but with a smart pitch. A lunch meeting here, a dinner there, a private video call with a donor's family. He knew how to connect news stories to donation drives before they even stopped trending. He didn't just ask for help. He showed why it mattered how it paid for travel, gear, videos, staff, and signs, how it kept the mission going. Some of the messages were for his own team choices about hiring, small edits to news releases, or a yes divided by no on partnerships. Every word had to match the brand. Between calls, he'd check X, post something, share a thought, make a point. The camera was off now, but the job wasn't. By the time the afternoon sun starts to drop behind palm trees or college clock towers, Charlie Kirk is on the move again. Airports, rental cars, back doors of student centers. It's not a fancy routine, but it runs like a well-oiled machine. For years, his calendar has been full of college visits, Turning Point events, church talks, and private meetings. Being Charlie Kirk means always moving, always ready to speak, always carrying a message. He doesn't travel with much luggage, but the gear he brings: cameras, live stream tools, backup mics, and a small team is heavy in a different way. Wherever he lands, someone is usually there waiting: student leaders, campus Republicans, hotel staff, a donor, or sometimes a protester holding a handwritten sign. He greets them all the same way: polite, careful, and in full control. Once inside the venue, things go like clockwork. A quick prayer, a hello with a joke, then straight into the speech: problems, numbers, strong opinions, and lines that get loud cheers. The crowd, mostly young and active online, already knows what's coming. They didn't show up to be surprised, they came to hear what they already believe. And Charlie delivers. These campus events may look easy, but they're planned like a mission. His team works with schools. Tech staff check the internet. Security checks the doors. Every part is set up to make video clips that can spread fast online. This isn't just a speech, it's a show. When it ends, there's no fan meetup. Just a quick nod, a walk out a side door, and a quiet ride to the next hotel. Charlie checks his phone, looks at comments, and gets ready to do it all again tomorrow. Charlie Kirk wasn't just the face of a political movement, he was also a father. It was a new part of his life, but it changed how he planned his days. He didn't talk much about his family in public. When he did, it was short, maybe during a podcast or an interview when things got personal. But off camera, being a dad added something new to a life full of shows, meetings, and breaking news. People close to him said he was very present at home, at least in short bursts. His job didn't give him a regular 9-to-5 life, but he still made time when he could. In the mornings, he sometimes sat with his child in his lap while reading the news. In the evenings, if he wasn't traveling, he often put his phone down and stayed off screens. He sometimes took his family with him on trips not on stage, but close by. At Turning Point events, there were backstage rooms with toys, snacks, and a break from the busy world. If you weren't paying attention, you might not notice a stroller in the corner during a book signing, or the way his voice changed when his wife walked into view during a live stream. People who worked with him said fatherhood changed him, not his politics, but how he felt. He started talking more about the future his child would grow up in, not just today's news. He didn't share family photos online. In fact, he almost never posted any, and that silence said a lot. For someone who lives so much in public, this was the one thing he chose to keep private. Charlie Kirk was never just Charlie Kirk. Behind the man on stage and the voice on the microphone was something much bigger, a team built for political fights. Turning Point USA, which started with just a table and a few college flyers, had grown into a big company. It made millions each year, had many full-time workers, and was known across the country, just like older conservative groups. Its main office in Phoenix looked modern and clean, more like a tech company than a political group. There were glass walls, podcast rooms, video editors, and a war room where young workers watched the news closely, just like stock traders watch numbers. Kirk was the face of it all, but the group worked because it kept going all the time. Teams planned his day down to the minute, setting up live streams, media spots, rides from the airport, safety checks, and even what clips to post and when. Every podcast had a picture. Every picture had a plan. Emails were a big part of the work, not just for news, but also for asking for money, taking polls, sending invites, and more. On a normal day, the system sent out thousands of emails, testing which subject lines made people click. Then there were the people, other online stars, lawmakers, pastors, athletes. It wasn't just about posts, it was about years of calls, meals, meetings, and constant effort. Kirk didn't just follow the trends, he helped build them, piece by piece, one team member at a time. At the center of it all, a packed daily plan full of meetings, filming, travel, reviews, and big choices. Because Turning Point wasn't just about winning today. It was about building something that could keep going, even without Charlie Kirk. Every group has a message, but every message becomes a brand. And Charlie Kirk understood this very well. He wasn't just a speaker, he became a logo, a slogan, a meme, and a name people argued about. To some, he stood for American values. To others, he caused fights and pushed people apart. But the name Charlie Kirk was never just about the person. It was about the ideas he stood for and how loudly he shared them. From the beginning, he leaned into the spotlight. Debates at colleges, big headlines, short video clips where he said something bold, then smiled while people cheered or got up and left. That drama wasn't by accident. It was part of the plan. And he got hate from all sides. Big news groups, angry people online, teachers, protesters, even people who once agreed with him. They called him a fake, a puppet, and worse. He answered by pushing even harder. Turning Point didn't just survive bad press, it used it. Every angry news story helped raise more money. Every protest outside their events proved to them that they were on target. Inside the office, staff even tracked the hate, how many tweets, news mentions, how far each video spread. They saw the anger as something they could work with. But it wasn't all easy. Events needed heavy security. Threats were common. Some places canceled last minute. And for Charlie, it meant always acting calm, focused, and ready even when no one was watching. The brand had to stay strong. Because when you're the main face of something big, your biggest risk isn't a bad tweet. It's letting people see the real you. The cameras turned off. The podcast lights went dark. The Twitter posts slowed down at least for a few hours. But even then, Charlie Kirk didn't really stop. He lived in the middle of noise, but after midnight, when phones went quiet and messages stopped coming in, something else started. People close to him knew. The real thinking often started when the day was over. His nights were slower, but not easier. He read not just news or show notes, but big books with folded corners. Books on politics, religion, deep stories about how countries rise and fall. He filled the pages with small notes, written in short, fast handwriting only he could understand. He didn't hide what he liked. C.S. Lewis, Thomas Sowell, Chesterton. The Bible was always near, but he read others too, people who didn't agree with him. He wanted to know what they thought. He went to bed late. Sometimes he didn't sleep at all. His laptop stayed open. He worked on scripts for the next day, changed clips for social media, sent emails at 2 inches the morning to staff in other time zones. The line between rest and work was hard to see. And then there were his notebooks. He kept them close. They were full of ideas, lists of names, lines for speeches, and short quotes he might use later. He wrote in them long after most people were asleep. No lights, no cheering. Just a man at his desk, still planning. Because for Charlie Kirk, this wasn't just a job, it was a mission. And even when the country slept, his mind stayed awake page by page. To millions, Charlie Kirk was a voice. To others, a problem. But what most people missed was the work behind the mic and the person behind the name. He wasn't a politician, but had the reach of one. He wasn't a teacher, but built a strong network on college campuses across the country. He didn't hold office, but people in power often texted him. It's easy to call him names. Right-wing loudmouth, youth leader for conservatives, podcaster who stirs trouble. But those names never told the full story. Most people didn't know how often he said no to big offers. Spots on Fox News, talk of running for office, easy book deals. He turned some down not because he was scared, but because he wanted control. He wanted to build something that was fully his. Even fewer people knew how deep he was in the small stuff. Fixing text on YouTube videos. Testing titles in emails asking for money. Changing where donors sat at events to make better talks happen. He didn't just talk. He built a brand, a platform, a world where politics, faith, and youth came together. And there were mixed parts to him. He quoted the Bible and old power thinkers in the same speech. He said the elite were a problem, but held dinners in private clubs. He spoke for normal people, but lived with access most don't have. Supporters saw belief. Critics saw planning. The truth was likely somewhere in the middle. But one thing most people agreed on, Charlie Kirk was never boring. And if you thought he didn't matter, you were probably already too late. Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, stood on an outdoor stage as part of his American comeback tour. About 3,000 people had come to see him. He was in the middle of a debate with a student about gun violence. At 11:52 a.m., security footage showed a person arriving near a building called the Losey Center about 140 to 200 yards from the stage. That person went up to the roof. The event was set to begin at noon. Kirk started speaking. Around 20 minutes later, between 12:20 and 12:23 p.m., there was one loud gunshot. People screamed and ran. Kirk had been hit in the neck. Blood was seen. He fell. Security rushed to help. He was quickly carried off stage. Campus police and his team moved fast. He was taken to Timpanogos Regional Hospital in very bad condition. The gun was later confirmed to be a high-powered rifle. Police found the rifle in nearby woods, along with some footprints, a handprint, and parts of a bullet. Later that day, doctors said Charlie Kirk had died. Police said it looked like the shooter meant to kill him. At the scene, dispatch audio said the shooter wore black clothes, a helmet, and a mask. He used a long rifle and fired from the rooftop. 2 people were taken in for questions but let go. No one has been arrested yet. The FBI is helping with the case. Police asked the public to send in any videos or tips. A reward was offered. Many leaders spoke out. Turning Point USA called Charlie their guiding light. President Trump and Governor Spencer Cox called it a political attack. Flags were lowered. Students held a quiet candlelight event. But the big questions remain. How did this happen? How did someone with a gun get that close, on a rooftop, without being stopped? Charlie Kirk's last day did not end with a podcast or a headline. It ended with a single shot and silence. He built something huge. He made headlines. And in the end, he left behind a story that's still not fully told. What part of his daily life did you find most surprising? Tell us in the comments, And if you want more deep dives like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about how people actually lived it.